Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever edition of the Cake and Ink podcast on our Dapple Productions YouTube channel. And today it's my honor to welcome one of the most influential and important persons that somehow still manages to be unknown to many members of the Splatoon community. Emil, may you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Emil. You can see my name right down here. Most people will probably know me of the user with the crown on top of the Looty staff list. Considering I've been hosting Looty for about 10 seasons now. I've also done some competitive play, mainly in Splatoon 1, but also in Splatoon 2. So you may know me of either of those things.
Okay, very interesting. So with that out of the way, we're going to head right into our first question. Emil, as you mentioned, you are the head TO of Splatoon's biggest league, LeaguesUnderTheInk, short Looty. And as far as my information goes, you did not create it. So when and how did you take the lead there? And how did you feel about it back then?
Yeah, that's actually right. Looty was created by a group of users. It includes Kbot, which you probably know. I would say one of the main instigators of Looty was Nick, or Nyok, as it was called. You probably wouldn't know him if you just played Splatoon 2. He was a major figure in the Splatoon 1 community, and I was good friends with him, but Nick is quite old, or Splatoon terms anyway. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that. And so when he got a Romanian wife, when he moved out, I took over. And I think for many of the people that hosted that first Looty season, and maybe even the second one, they liked doing it because it was new and because it was a cool thing to do. I think for many of them, kind of the charm ran off after a few seasons, and so most of them left. And I'm someone who doesn't mind keeping a tournament like this alive and hosting it. And that's how I took over, because Nick said, well, you're probably the best candidate for the job. You're the one who's the most drive to do this. So that's how I got the job.
Interesting to hear. It's remarkable that it's been 11 seasons right now, right? This was the 11th one.
I think we've done 11 seasons so far, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you've been the head TO for 10 seasons so far?
I would say 9.
9, okay.
If I'm honest.
Okay.
On the second season, I was on staff, but I wasn't really hosting it. I was still making mistakes.
Okay.
Probably by the third season, I hosted it.
Okay, but now you're in the lead there now. So I would like to know, how long does it usually take the staff to prepare one season or to make it ready? Because the last season just ended, and so you maybe can't even foreshadow anything with this answer regarding the 12th edition of Looty.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people want to know, of course. It doesn't actually take an incredibly long time to make a season. I think a lot of the wait in between seasons is also us having to recharge our batteries, having to find a good time. Because obviously there's a lot of tournaments that are also running, and we don't want to overlap with any of them. And a lot of wait is also just so it's more special in a way each season. I feel like if you do a season every month, every 2 months,
yeah, of course,
we'll grow very tired of it. So I think it's also important to keep it alive in that sense. As for the 12th season, it's definitely coming. I'm planning on making another season. I'm not sure about the rest of staff, but I definitely am. So I can't tell you, of course, exactly when it's going to be, because first we're doing the new tournament, which is Fluty, the Fast Looty. But depending on the success of that, we might do one or more of those. And it'll really come as well when all staff members have the time and have the opportunity to do so. Because of course it is a giant thing to do. It's a lot of work to make Looty run throughout the entire time of it. So it also has to come at a good time for us. If we're in the middle of some heavy work week, or maybe I have a lot of exams that week, I can't really host it, that's not a good time to start Looty. So we try to plan around those as well.
Yeah, but I'm happy to hear.
I would say in a few months.
Yeah, but I'm happy to hear that there's gonna be a 12th season anyway. No matter the time I have to wait. Obviously, there was a bigger gap between season 10 and 11, probably the biggest one between seasons yet, and which made season 11 feel more special. You achieved your goal there. So, yeah. Ahead to our next question. As mentioned earlier, Luchi is by far the biggest league in Splatoon made by the community and for the community. As the teams are seeded into divisions, they often orient themselves, their skill level, by these divisions. So does this put a lot of pressure onto you while helping with the seeding? And how does the seeding process usually work?
As far as previous seasons went, I think hosted most of the seeding process. Of course, during the first few seasons, everyone kind of knew each other, so a seeding process wasn't as necessary, if the teams were fairly set in the stone at that point, and everyone knew who the better teams and the newer teams were. As far as the newer seasons, the past season has been the first season where I haven't been particularly involved in the seeding, even though I've made the brackets and the groups and kind of the general outline of the groups and the divisions. I think most people in the seeding council were more of a factor in the current seeding process. That's because I haven't been playing competitively too much recently. I've been working on my masters, so I'm very grateful for the help they're giving me, because without them, I'm sure that it will be a lot harder to create good divisions, and it would take a lot longer, which wouldn't be very helpful for all the teams that want to play in Luti. As far as the emphasis on seeding goes, I think that's a really rough problem to solve. Because on the one hand, of course, people make fun of people when they say, "Oh, look, I'm Division 3," while we put them in Division 6. On the other hand, people also say not to give too much emphasis on the Luti divisions. So there's a lot of sort of contradictions and paradoxes in making these divisions, and personally, I've never cared too much about if I'm Division 3 or 4 or 5 or 2 or 1. For me, it's also always been the case of playing with friends, and then we'll see where we end up and how well we do. But I do understand that it's a very important pillar that the community is built on, because it's one of the easiest ways to spot whether you've improved as a team or not. And of course, if you've been playing Luti for a while and you keep rising in divisions, that's a very clear indication that you're doing something right and you're improving. Maybe if you don't necessarily want to improve and you continue to stay in Division XYZ for a lot of seasons, then that's also an indication that you're just doing fine and you're just playing it for fun. So in that sense, it is important, but it's hard to create something like this without doing divisions and without people taking it into account too much.
Yeah, it's obviously understandable. Probably you can think of it the same way as +1 and +2, where people still criticize it a lot, but still it's something that is pretty useful most of the time. It can be annoying, but it's also a huge part of the community and important for many players. With that, let's go next to the fourth question. I obviously wish the whole seeding team a lot of luck in the future and getting most of teams seeded right. Let's head away from Luti for a moment, because, as you said, you've also been involved in the community as a competitive player, and you won the Dutch Championship, moving to Paris in the official European Championship of Splatoon. And how was this experience that happened a while, obviously, ago for you?
I'll let you know that I've actually won the Dutch Championships twice, not just once. I'd won 2 Dutch Championships, and that was because in the early days, people who's played Splatoon 1 well also played Splatoon 2 very well. And I was one of the better Splatoon 1 players. I think I was better at that than at Splatoon 2 I've ever been. During the first few years, still having that Splatoon 1 experience, I think it was fairly easy to also stay on top of Splatoon 2. And I think it's just amazing how much money is spent on those championships. is everyone always says that Nintendo doesn't have the money or the interest to support esports and the like. But then every once in a while, they have this amazingly expensive event,
Mm,
huge prizes. I think recently there was the North American Splatoon Open Championship, something Splatter
yeah,
Championships, and the first place every time was like 20,000 euros in total or something. It's something crazy, something insane that could support one of these players for a year if without any additional income if it was necessary. So Nintendo definitely does have the money to invest it, and it really does in these public events like the European Championships, because really both years, I mean, Paris was amazing. Switzerland was even more insane the year we went there, because the hotels that we went to, they cost 500 euros for a few nights, and then everyone was flown in, and everyone got dinner, and everyone had this huge venue to stay in. I mean, it must have cost upwards of 1,000 euros or pounds for any single one of those 100 players to stay there for a few
yeah.
days.
I remember feeling
Um,
the envy of about everyone that got to go there. And I was at home seeing the stream. I was like, oh my god, there's so many amazing
yeah,
people meeting up at this really great location. So would have probably been a lot of fun. But I was
yeah, it really
13 at the
was. It
time.
really was, because a lot of the qualifiers as well, they were fairly simple. Some of them were basically like a best of three turf war
Mm,
event somewhere, and then the winners of those events got to stay in a fancy hotel in Switzerland for multiple days and take advantage of all these amazing things. So it's really weird how Nintendo uh, funnels the funds into certain
mm,
areas. I think it's just whatever gives them the most PR, the best public appearance.
mm.
That's where the money will go to.
Yeah, because yeah, as you mentioned, sometimes they have a lot of money and resources that they invest, and I think the North American events that happened last time had gaming chairs as the biggest prizes, so something that other competitive communities would consider laughable. Yeah, I mean, it happens, and we can still be grateful for for the support that Nintendo sometimes gives the community, even if it's not comparable to other big esports.
Mhm. I think if I make it to you may cut us out if you don't want to, but the I think the big reason why Nintendo has less prizes is because Nintendo is aiming for family-friendly games, and they're aiming to make sure that some 12-year-old kid doesn't see these championships and thinks, I'm gonna make that my entire life. I'm gonna spend my entire life on these games, and I'm gonna know life it, which is probably possible for games like League of Legends, which famously were large prize pools, or Dota, or Counter Strike, or games like that. And I feel like Nintendo really wants to keep the environment safe and fun for everyone. And I think a small prize pool helps in keeping it family fun and not just a competitive,
Yeah,
insane thing.
have the fun aspect mainly. Yeah. So with this, I mean, last question comes. In the end, how are you feeling about the future? And do you have any special plans as a player, or as a player coming back maybe and playing more actively again, or for Luti in general?
I must admit, as a player myself, I doubt I will be playing competitively. I think I would need to spend so much time on it again to really reach the upper echelons. I think I'll be safe just playing in an occasional tournament when I have the time. But as far as my current studies goes, I don't think I have the opportunity to do that anymore. TOing, I think, is much nicer because for a TO, you don't have to spend the entirety of the year
Mm,
practicing for a certain tournament. It's enough if you turn up for the tournament and spend a week on it when you have the time. And of course, I think before this interview went live, we hadn't publicly announced Fluty yet, which is the fast Luty. So that's one of the plans that we definitely have for the future. I think it all depend on how well that does and how many entrants we does, depending on how long the next season is going to be and what our plans are for the future.
okay, I'll hopefully be playing Fluty with some of my friends of the +2 server maybe. And yeah, I hope it'll be a great event. And we'll obviously make a link to your Twitter in this YouTube description. So yeah, thanks for joining me in this interview.
Thank you for hosting.
No problem, you're welcome. And I hope everyone's looking forward to future editions of this podcast. And with this, I'll end it right here and wish Emil a nice day. And goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Goodbye.